You damn right. It is Wednesday. Hope you're having a good hump day. And this is House Divided. No Jeff Ketchum today. Jeff Ketchum has had some things come up this week. Everybody's fine. Everybody's good. Just sometimes life comes at you fast, especially when you're the boss and you got all kinds of things going on. So Jeff Ketchum will be here and there on Orange Bloods Live for the rest of the week. I think he's going to make time for the Outsiders tonight. So you're going to get his thoughts on practice tonight. Definitely check out 8:30 with the Outsiders. But right now, we're going to get into some more Texas football stuff and keep on rolling. I am Chad Hastings, and that guy, old man, that guy is Cody Carpentier of Orange Bloods Roster Watch, breaking it down like nobody else. He's been on the show before, of course. Wanted to get his thoughts on some Texas football stuff. Cody, how you doing today?
Doing fantastic, man. Middle of the day, warmed up, hump day. Talking some Texas football. I'm ready for it. Let's go.
There it is. All right. So we will get to some pictures. They say a picture tells 1,000 words, right? Is that right? Picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, that means I've got 18,000 words for you today because I grabbed some of my favorite pictures from what Jason Sukamel got at practice yesterday, and we'll give you more of a sense of, wait, we talked about that guy. Well, what does that guy look like, and remind you about jersey numbers and all that good stuff. We'll get to that. But Cody, I thought it'd be a good space to start with the receivers today because it got a lot of talk yesterday. And the first two main guys that got mentioned were Jonte Cook and Isaiah Bond. And then that next guy that went out there in a 3-wide set was actually Moore and not Matthew Golden. So I just spent a lot of yesterday not just thinking about those first three guys, but I started thinking, well, what does this mean for Matthew Golden? And I know it's one day, but overreacting after one day is what we're supposed to do, right? So we're going to talk about Golden and Bolden today, one, to make sure we're all clear on who's who, but also I think it is important, Cody, in terms of Sarkeesian using all of these weapons. Give me a thought of how surprised were you when you heard that Matthew Golden was on the outside, that Bond was on the outside, and therefore it ended up where Matthew Golden was not out there with the first receivers.
I know the conversation has been had about Bond playing in the slot since the day he signed to come to Texas. But I've talked about it with Alex numerous times, and I wrote it in my 5 players to watch coming into the spring ball. DeAndre Moore, I know it's been very quiet and he doesn't have like the star-studded name, but the conversation's been there when you listen to guys like Jordan Whittington and other guys that were in the building and saying that DeAndre Moore was doing the right things, following in line, and being the first one to show up like he was yesterday, first one to practice, like doing the things Jordan Whittington did. And it's like, wow, we don't want to call him Jordan Whittington. We don't want to call him the next Roschon Johnson. But if a spade's a spade, if a star's a star, things are in line. They're telling you what they are. And DeAndre Moore might just be that next guy in line. And people forget that he was a pretty high-end recruit at the wide receiver position. He was a 4-star wide receiver. It shouldn't be a surprise that he comes in here from St. John's Bosco of all schools, and all of a sudden in year 2, the opportunity is there to see him in the slot. So I like that, and I think when you're looking at Isaiah Bond from a dynamic wide receiver with his abilities, we saw him play in the slot 58% last year at Alabama, but that's not 80%. Like in the NFL, you're going to see these guys want them to play slot and outside. Same thing that happened with Justin Jefferson. Everyone said, well, Justin Jefferson can only play in the slot. And guess what? He went to Minnesota. He played a lot on the outside. Malik Neighbors has been the same way. They're knacking on him right now through the draft process because he plays too much in the slot. Well, guess what? He only played 60% in the slot. He also played 40% of that time on the outside. So it's one of those things with these high-end alpha type wide receivers. I know he's not 6'3", 6'4", like a prototypical alpha, but these guys need to play both spots. And I don't foresee him playing 90% outside, but Sark is definitely going to use him back and forth. And it's really just a mix and match. Again, day 1 of practice, this is what they showed us. We don't know what they did after the media left. We also don't know what their broad goals are. The surprise, like you mentioned, though, was 100% Matthew Golden. Matthew Golden coming in, the way I forecasted it was, we're going to see some Bond in the slot, but I think we're going to see a lot of DeAndre Moore, and then it's going to be Golden next in line. Last year, he was 35% in the slot at Houston, but he was kind of the main go-to guy at Houston last year instead of Joseph Manjak. So that was the shocker, given what he is and what he brings to the table. I really saw him playing majority in the slot, but seeing him on the outside was kind of interesting.
Yeah, it really jumped out to me too. Just to remind everybody, I've mentioned it about these transfers. All three of them, Bond, Bolden, and Golden, they led their teams in something you care about. For Golden, it was touchdowns. He was tied for the lead in touchdowns at Houston with 6, 38 catches for 404. And Cody, as I'm thinking about these numbers, if you're slotting in numbers from last year and trying to project it to this year, I think there's some pretty obvious things maybe you could get to. If you consider one important thing, last year, Xavier Worthy had 75 catches. If you take Worthy, Mitchell, Sanders, Whittington, then add Brooks and Keelan Robinson, who are all gone now, that is 150 receptions that have to be replaced. 250. So is there a guy that can get to that Worthy level? We'll see. And is that Cook or is that Bond? But then as far as Golden goes, is it crazy for me, Cody, to think, okay, Golden get 38 catches. Whittington had 42. That's just 4 catches different. Is it crazy for me to say, hey, Matthew Golden, go give this team about what Jordan Whittington gave him? Is that crazy?
I don't think it's crazy. The problem I think we have here, and I went through here and looked at, the last couple years, 2022, 2023, and then I went back and looked at 2019 and 2020 Alabama when Sark was the OC there. And the reason I did that was because you can't really go back 2 years and say, well, Texas, look at the talent they had and, compare it. The talent wasn't comparable to now. But when you go back and look at that Alabama team, Tua and Mac at quarterback, Arch and Quinn, okay, draftable guys. The running back room loaded. Brian Robinson, Keelan Robinson, Jerome Ford, Najee Harris, Trey Sanders, all these guys, draftable guys. The receiver room, though, and again, this is a high-end round one full. Jerry Jeudy, Devonta Smith, Henry Ruggs, John Mechie, Jalen Waddle. Whew. You get down there, Jalen Waddle had 40 targets in 2019. Henry Ruggs had 55. Devonta Smith, 88. Jerry Jeudy, 108. If Jeudy and Smith is Cook and Bond this year, who's going to be that Ruggs and Waddle with the 55 and the 40? And then it was a catastrophic drop down to Miller Forstill, the tight end with 19. So it's like those 4 guys, those are all four first round guys. But in this offense, we're talking about what, 6? We're talking about 6 guys. Golden should be the 4th in line in this conversation. But again, we haven't seen Silas Bolden yet. There's a lot of expectations for Ryan Wingo. And then I haven't even mentioned DeAndre Moore, who right now is the 3, right? So to expect 46 targets out of Jordan Whittington from last year, give those to Matthew Golden, I don't think that's out of the question at all.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out. We're talking Texas receivers today, specifically a guy who was at practice yesterday, Golden, and we'll get to a guy who was not at practice yesterday, and that is Silas Bolden. Do not forget about that name. Real quick, off the football topic in a way, Sandman, we know you're out there. We know you had to change your name. As far as I know, no one banned you. I don't remember. I certainly didn't ban you. I wouldn't know how. So I don't believe this channel banned you. So Tex 94, we know that you're Sandman, and we hope you can get a Sandman moniker back very soon because it's a little cooler to say than Tex 94, but we'll do whatever we need to do. And thanks to everybody who's jumping in the Specs chat today. Let's give Specs their love because they got plenty of stuff for you.
You're needing Specs same-day delivery can save the day with our Specs app or online shopping. From world-class wines to hard-to-find spirits and craft beers to gourmet foods, delicious snacks, and spectacular sweets. It's Specs. Cheers to savings.
Yes, indeed. Got stocked up at Specs the other day. All right. So, Cody, in terms of these guys we were just talking about and going over those numbers, you were talking about the targets for these guys. In terms of the catches for last year, the answer to who caught more balls among the 3 is Bolden. Silas Bolden. He caught more balls than anybody at Oregon State. He had more yards than anybody at Oregon State, and he had more of each of those than the other 2 guys, than Bond did at Bama and that Golden did at Houston. He also had 5 touchdowns. So I'm just going to keep reminding people, Cody, that I can't imagine Silas Bolden walks in the door and falls to like 2nd or 3rd tier or whatever. We got to interview him on House Divided, a couple months ago, and his attitude was, yeah, they're going to get me the installs. I'm going to finish up at Oregon State. I'll be ready to go. And he played a lot on the outside at Oregon State. So to me, he's got to fit in somewhere. And that just brings me back to, if I'm right about that, what's that going to mean for Golden when it happens?
I mean, you fit in where you get in. And I think that's one thing where, like I just talked about with Henry Ruggs. Henry Ruggs ran a 4.2. Silas Bolden, we think, is around the 4.3, if not faster. Sometimes the opportunities are going to look a little bit different. At Oregon State, they needed to throw him the ball 86 times. He needed to be the leading receiver. Anthony Gould was in this draft right now. He's probably going to be a 6th-round pick. He was also at Oregon State, but he only had 16 less targets than did Silas Bolden. So I don't think Bolden's going to come in here, go for 100 targets, lead the team or anything like that. But 100% in line with what you're saying is we can't forget he's there. He's going to come in and bring a dynamic piece to this offense that, I'm not saying they need it, but it's something where a Bond leaves the field, a Bolden comes in. A Golden leaves the field, a Bolden comes in. Like, the names are really getting me right now in my head, but they come in, they come out, and they don't need to be in there for 85% of the snaps. You can have a Bolden potentially play 40% of snaps, and that's plenty, because when he's in, he's dynamic and the ball can get pushed right to his hands.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the rotations for you, when there's been a lot of discussion around Sarkeesian about what rotation means for him, it's something that fascinates me in football. When they're talking about rotational, receivers, do you think they just mean it as we got to have our depth out on one side, out on the other side, and we have to have depth at slot? Or do you truly think that when Sark thinks of it, he thinks of it as, I can take this outside guy and I can put him in the slot, and I can take this slot guy and I can move him just a little bit more outside. I can really move these guys around within the options? Like, which way do you think about it, and which way do you think he should think about it?
The way I think about it is the way I try to perceive how the NFL does. And the NFL, with these really high-end guys, the Cooper Kupps, the Justin Jeffersons, they've been trying to do it with Jamar Chase and Adam Thielen. You can continue to name guys. Those ones that are dominant on the outside and work their game into the slot, become dominant in the slot, vice versa. Those are the ones that are the best, because they're super versatile and can be used in all these different angles. So I think they're going to continue to work Isaiah Bond in there. Jonte, it feels like they might just keep him on the outside, which I would get, just because of the guys you also have in the roster, and Moore and Golden and Bolden. But I think when he says, moving them around, I think who was the ones they had switching? What was it here? Golden and Wingo. They had switching from X to Z.
Right. So as Alex,
right? Alex mentioned cross training. So that's like moving those guys, which is very interesting. Again, with Golden, who we talked about, over 30% in the slot last year, and now they're just XZ. That's interesting. That should be a tell for us. Again, 20 minutes of practice. We saw what we saw. If that's the truth, and Moore is just going to be in there for 75% of the snaps and play slots, it's on 100% of that 75%, that's going to be wild. And then the rest of it maybe goes to Bond. But again, Silas still isn't here, so it's really tough to tell. But I think the exchange point would just be, I think Sark probably looks at it a little bit like the NFL would, and just trying to get these guys to work in different spots and be as versatile as possible, because heaven forbid it happens, you lose a Cook, you lose a Golden, all of a sudden Bolden needs to be playing sometimes at X. Like, things like that happen. I don't want them to, but these guys need to be working in these different roles. So I think that's probably how he visualizes it. But you kind of have to build it where you can get the most guys, the most opportunities that are going to give you the best opportunity to win.
Cody Carpentier sitting in for Mr. Ketchum today. Jeff Ketchum dealing with some stuff the rest of the week. We wish him the best. Everybody's fine. Everybody's good. Just some crazy stuff came up that he's got to take care of, home and business-wise. A lot of things going on right now in the Ketchum house. It always seems like it's that way. We're going to get to some pictures from practice yesterday, which I'll remind you can find at orangebloods.com. We'll give you a little sneak peek at those. Before that, how about a couple other pictures, the images of the pictures, and some of the ideas that you could maybe think of with AV consultations. And after it's done, I'll tell you how you can get a free TV from AV consultations. So pay attention.
Hi, this is Tom McKay with Audiovisual Consultations. Today's home electronics can be a bit daunting. My company has spent the last 36 years making sure they are not. For those of you who have not experienced our services yet, we'd like to invite you to give us a try for all your home electronics needs. We carry all the major brands of televisions and stereo equipment at prices you can't find in stores. And we come to you. There's no need to leave your home to find great pricing and incomparable service. No traffic, inexperienced sales geeks, or pushy showroom tactics. We believe in having some fun and dreaming big. Have a dream for your home entertainment? Let us know. We can make it come true. And we are always there to help after the job is done. We cultivate clients for a lifetime by treating everyone like their family. No, not those family members. I'm talking about the ones you actually like. So relax, hug your kids, make love to your wife, and smile. Then, when you have a moment, give us a call at 255-8678. That's 512-255-8678. Or online at avconsultations.com.
Yes, indeed. And if you've seen it on social media already, Orange Bloods, it's at OBWire on Twitter if you don't know. But the bracket challenge is out there. Get it in by 11:15 tomorrow when everything tips off. You get in on that bracket challenge. There's a cool prize pack that's being developed. Rogue Shop is a part of it. Shout out to Richard at Rogue Shop for helping us out there. And shout out to Tom at Audio Visual Consultations. 55-inch TV is a part of that package. So shout out to them for helping out. All right, big shout out to Jason Sukamel because he took some cool pictures at practice yesterday. For the guys that got to see, it's always better when you can add that visual. So what we're going to do is show you some pictures from yesterday and just kind of talk about, I want to get Cody's reaction to it as well. Overriding theme for me, Cody, as I listened to the response of the guys that saw practice was that for the most part, everybody looks like they need to look. Didn't look like there was a lot of sloppiness. Didn't look like there was a lot of, hey, wait, I thought we had a strength and conditioning program. And let's just start with this dude right here. All right, kids, this is what Collins looks like. This is what Alfred Collins looks like. Those long arms, Cody, this is the next weapon on that defensive line that should show up immediately. It should be 95, correct?
1,000,000% it should be 95. This is what Jim Nagy talked about a year ago. The length that the NFL wants. Everybody knows this. This is literally what got Tyree Wilson from Texas Tech drafted 2 years ago in the top 5. So the length and the growth, and he got invited to the Senior Bowl this year. If he doesn't take the next step forward, I think we're going to be in a little bit of trouble. So I think they're going to make it a point to bring Alfred along as quick as possible this summer.
Yeah. Also, just a general theme that you'll see in these pictures. If you can make that pad thing over the top of the helmet look cool, you're pretty cool. You're a badass. And Alfred Collins makes that look about as cool as it can look. If you're a fan of defensive line, here's your other guy. There's Vernon Broughton. And Broughton's a guy, Cody, that got the attention of an Alex Dunlap, got the attention of a Jason Sukamel. These guys watch practice all the time. They're watching these guys. And like you're watching all these guys getting ready for, for college and for the NFL. When you guys tell me that he's noticeable in a different way, that's when I start paying attention. And I heard that yesterday from the guys. So good news for Broughton. He looks like he's put together, and not saying there's not maybe a little work that can be done, but that looks like a dude that should be able to stand up like he needs to.
I'd agree with that. I think that's the one position they are a little more worried about. Alfred Collins, we've at least seen him do it a little bit more often last year with the opportunities, and there was expectation there. Vernon Broughton, I think there's going to be a little more press as far as from the coaches and the players behind him to kind of take that role. So Broughton, I don't know what he came in at. He doesn't look like he's 330 plus, but I'm trying to pull it up right now. 307 is the number, 6'4", 307. So I know there's some other guys like Savea. I think he's around 310-ish. And then, of course, you got the big boy, Sadir Mitchell, who there's not many sloppy guys you mentioned. Sadir might be a little bit on the sloppy end there.
Exactly. We'll look at Sadir here in a second. Real quick, though, give me a little football 101 when we're looking at the difference between that guy and that guy. Tell everybody in your mind the difference between when we're saying the difference between nose tackle and D tackle. What's the big difference to you? What do you need at each of those spots?
Well, I think at the defensive tackle position with Alfred a second ago, you're talking about having that length playing 3-tech. It reminds me of one of the first players I ever watched growing up, and that was Kevin Williams, who was on the Williams wall up in Minnesota. And that's kind of the dichotomy right there. If anybody remembers the Minnesota Vikings defensive line, early 2000s, Kevin Williams, Pat Williams. Kevin Williams playing 3-tech. He's about 6'4", 6'5", about 315, long arms, long levers, able to hold up a couple of double teams. And then Pat Williams in there was a stout 6'1", 345 pounds, shorter levers, shorter arms, and able to literally just as Alex says, be a fire plug. Just plug a hole, plug 3 holes at the same time, and that's kind of what you're visualizing. Even with a Vernon Broughton.
Gotcha. Okay. Kevin Williams, was that the dude that went to Oklahoma State?
I think it was Oklahoma State. Yeah.
He was a badass. Okay, so now you mentioned him. Let's take a look. There's Sadir Mitchell right there. For those of you that missed the report, Anwar Richardson had it on orangebloods.com. And please go check out Anwar, Jason, Alex, all those breakdowns they had yesterday, including the expanded gallery. But 3 guys were mentioned: Blackshire, Savion Red, and Sadir Mitchell. That he was asked about all their weights, and he said all of them could come down. The plan is not for any of those 3 guys to be right where they are right now. The plan is that they are going to shed some of that weight. So that is Sadir, listed at 372. Do I have that right, Cody?
Yeah.
372. Okay. So let's have everybody, you get that image in your mind right there, because that is a big man. That is a big man. Now, for the rest of these pictures, I'm going to do a little screen share. We'll see if the old man can pull this off, because that's also Mitchell. I want to make sure everybody understands a little different perspective there, Cody. I'm not saying that dude's still not big, and maybe he needs to do a little work, but I think we can all look at this picture and think, man, if you get things chiseled the right way, if you get things carved the right way, Cody, that's a machine waiting to happen right there.
And that's literally, like I mentioned before, the 5 players I was looking forward to watch the most. He's number 1 on that list because I wanted to see what Sadir was going to come in and look like. The comments obviously were not great yesterday, saying that he was forced to run a lap, and he did come in a little bit sloppy, a little bit heavy. But again, this side view of Sadir Mitchell makes me think that 370 is holding well. That front view didn't do him any justice, didn't do him any favors.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, just looking at him, anybody could tell you he dropped 10, 15 pounds and he'd probably be moving a little bit better, a little bit different.
Yeah. So the picture can tell 1,000 words and all that. It's worth 1,000 words, all that stuff. But sometimes there's different stories with different pictures. So just keep that one in mind. All right, Longhorn fans, let's go through some more here on the defensive side. That's Colin Simmons. There he is. You're going to hear a lot about him. You're going to hear a lot of things said about him. By the way, he makes a helmet look good. Even the one with the pad on top, Cody. Colin Simmons makes it look badass. There he is. There he is a little bit more on a close-up image. He certainly shows up looking the part. I'll be honest, with all the talk and everything about him, I sort of expected him to look even bulkier. It may not be fair on my part. What'd you think of the early images of Colin?
I think that video, that picture that surfaced, God, what it was, a month and a half ago or a month ago, surfaced over on Orange Bloods of Colin Simmons adding that 10, 15 pounds. I was like, oh my gosh, we're going to come in here and he's just going to be like NFL ready. And yeah, but when you see this picture, he looks good, but you can tell he's not, he's not a 4th year in college. He looks good for, I think it was 232 or something like that. 231, I think was what his body weight come in at. But, what is Harold Perkins? Harold Perkins down there at LSU, I think he's in the 220s. So playing kind of a similar position.
Okay. And again, there's Colin. Also on the defensive side, that's Trey Moore. Interesting comments from Alex Dunlap yesterday when he saw Trey live. He said, wow, he sort of felt longer to him when he watched the film at UTSA. And this is the one picture. And again, it's one picture trying to tell a story here, but he certainly doesn't look like he's in bad shape in any way, Cody. But would you agree with Alex's take that it may be a little different image than what we saw at UTSA?
Yeah, I think you're looking for an SEC body, and that's probably what he visualized. And like anything, Chad, when you're watching the film on a 5-star, you're watching the film on somebody told you is excellent, or you're watching somebody you already have a preconceived notion of, they look a little better than maybe they actually are. And so maybe that was the little bit that came in with Trey Moore, and then he saw him in person, and that happens. And he's just a little bit smaller. And again, he's talking about jumping from UTSA to the SEC now. And those body types are just different. The expectations are a little bit different. So I don't have a problem with it. And, guys like Elvis Dumervil dominated in the NFL, being 5'11" and 250 and coming off the edge. So there's no reason Trey Moore, who's bigger than both of those numbers, doesn't succeed.
Yeah. By the way, shout out to Pad Guy for not missing calf day. Check out that right calf. Come on now. Get after it. He's doing the calf work. All right. How about Filsamy? This is a freshman, kids.
That's not a freshman. That's not a freshman right there.
Goodness, Cody. That's Phil, okay, this just in. Phil Simi has not spent the spring crushing cotton candy. He has not been eating badly. Man.
I don't think he's had cotton candy since he was maybe like sub 10. He's been eating protein, hamburger, steak, potatoes, the whole 9 yards. He's ready to go. I mean, the conversation's been had right over the past couple of months. You know, which one of these freshmen outside of Colin Simmons is going to get an opportunity to take on a role? And I think yesterday we saw Taff and playing the two safety roles. Makuba's coming in. Phil Sime, the opportunity is going to be there for Phil Sime to take over as one of the starting safeties between now and week 1 or now and week 2. So, I mean, he looks ready.
Yeah, he does. Just really, really impressive there. All right, and before we take a little picture break, this is, of course, Arch Manning. Some people, Cody, think this is just Arch taking a shotgun snap. I have insider information. The ball was sitting on the ground 30 yards away from him. He's doing that with the force. People don't know that's not what's going on. That's not what's happening at all. But there is a picture of Arch for you just to make sure. Let's see what the next one we'll get. Oh, yeah. Oh, there's Jonte. All right. We will get to the offensive side. In fact, we'll leave it on Jonte. We'll come back for that as we get to the other parts of this thing. But very cool to see those pictures from Jason Sukamel, orangebloods.com. We always give you that reminder of Orange Bloods, and there's so much stuff there. Let's throw a QR code up for you. All the practice reports, all those pictures. The gallery's like 40, 50, 60 pictures. I just grabbed a few of them, but there's great stuff there. Also, speaking of that bracket challenge, a year's worth of Orange Bloods, a year membership to Orange Bloods is part of the victory for you in the bracket challenge. So an extra reason to get in on that bracket. Also, let's remind you, one of our other great partners around here, and that is Andy at My Perfect Franchise. You hear Alex, Catch, and all the guys talking about him. Andy's one of the sponsors on orangebloods.com for Alex's breakdown. By the way, if you didn't read Alex's full breakdown of that first day of practice, who says you can't get a lot out of 15 or 20 minutes? Man, Alex gave a lot of good info of what he saw and thought yesterday. But Andy can help you out when you're thinking about something. You're thinking about that next job. Maybe it's the job you were forced into. Maybe it's the job you've been dreaming about your whole life. It's a side hustle. It's an idea. It's a concept. You just need to figure out how to make it real. You just need to figure out how to get the rubber to the road, and that's what Andy does. All those questions you've had, he's answered them for years. This is what he does. You got a lot of ways here to do it. MyPerfectFranchise.net. You can go old school and actually call him on the phone. Imagine that. 973-9901 or Andy at MyPerfectFranchise.net. Shoot him an email and you can get the conversation started that way as well. Shout out to Andy and My Perfect Franchise. Cody Carpentier jumping in for Catch today. And again, tonight we'll have an Outsider show at 8:30 and trying to work on a guest. Don't want to spoil it, but Catch is going to jump on the Outsiders tonight after he gets done with all the stuff he's dealing with today. So we'll get his thoughts on the early parts of practice, what he's hearing tonight on the Outsiders at 8:30. So make sure you check that out. Also, we've got a recruiting show coming up later this afternoon at 4 with myself and Jason Sukamel. And it's all about recruits that are going to be coming to watch spring practice. So as the cycle continues, what big time recruits, whether it's a guy who's already committed or it's a recruit that is still hasn't decided, a lot of those guys are going to be coming to watch practices. Sukamel is going to let you know who those are coming up at 4 o'clock today. And again, we're talking about specifically receiver stuff today and kind of how it's all going to fit together. Cody, I thought you made a great point earlier to go back and break down those years at Bama for Sark. Because the one thing I would tell a Texas fan is I feel like we have reason to build the trust for Sark. I'm not saying he's perfect. I'm not saying on game day there's not a moment or two where you go, oh, is the little thing. But I feel like he's been progressing in a great way, and I think there's reason to believe through those teams you're looking at. I think there's reason to believe he can take all these weapons. Some of them we haven't even talked about yet, tight ends and running backs and everything. I think there's reason to believe he can take these weapons and use them, the way they need to be because he has done it before.
It's proven. It's a proven track record going back to just literally those 2 years at Bama, and you can go back as far as you want, but I want to stay within the last 5. And when you do look at Bama, he had the running backs, he had the receivers, and he had the quarterback. The one thing he didn't have, though, was the tight end. You kind of brought it up there. So that'll be an interesting one to kind of see how that breaks down. Of course, Niblack started out slow yesterday at the first day of practice, but it's because he hasn't really done much during the spring with an injury. But I think it's proven. And I think that's one thing that has brought in all of these receivers. It was a big offseason, bringing in Bolden, bringing in Golden, bringing in Bond, and having those conversations. It feels like maybe one too many, and bringing in also Ryan Wingo. The expectation there, like in any other year, even last year, you could have made an argument like, okay, if we had Ryan Wingo last year, that opportunity for him would have pushed up maybe north of the opportunities that Jonte Cook got, just because of he looks like he's progressed, he looks like he's not progressed. He looks like he's in a state as a freshman to really produce and really have an output. But there's 6 dudes in this offense at the wide receiver position that could potentially hamper that. But he's the biggest of them all. He's the most prototypical X of them all. So, that's talking all the way down to the true freshman. So I think it's very interesting just to see the dichotomy. And it's straight up just with Sarkeesian. It's a proven track record at the wide receiver position. He's going to be able to get these guys their output. And it shouldn't be hard when he say, hey, guys, 4 years ago at Alabama, I had 4 first-round picks, and they all got their work. They all had 40-plus targets. They all had 700-plus yards in the same season. Produced Heismans at the receiver position, at the quarterback position. It's not a hard story to tell.
Yeah, and even if you want to go to tight end, where, like you said, he hasn't maybe produced the most massive numbers, but a guy like Niblack is looking at what Sanders is dealing with here. I mean, and obviously it is pro timing day today, by the way. We'll get some of those numbers later on. And does JT Sanders improve his stock even more? But he's already thought of as the second guy in terms of a tight end in this draft. Might help himself a little bit today. Niblack can see that. Cody, I pulled up the Niblack touchdown against Texas today because I forgot where he came from on the play. I thought, now, how did they line him up there? Was it a stereotypical kind of tight end position, or where was he? It was kind of in between. He was sort of in an H-back. He was in kind of a slot position on the left, and he was there with another tight end. They had a double tight end set on the left side, and they ran them both on like deep crossing routes, and the Texas defenders lost them both. And he ends up wide open across the middle. Milroe finds him just in time before he gets crushed. And it's just a reminder of like, okay, it's about how you use those weapons in different situations. He was able to score that big touchdown. Now, it didn't end up being the difference in the game, Texas fans, because you won that game. But it was a big moment at the time for Bama. It looked like they were maybe going to get momentum back. And they were able to use the weaponry there and use a tight end, Cody, in a way that just didn't feel like my kind of tight end growing up.
Yep.
That's not what tight ends did when I was growing up watching football.
No, that's kind of the maturation of the position. Like you just mentioned, you grew up watching the dudes that were 6'5", 260, mostly in line. And now we do have, even last year, Jatavian Sanders, his snap percentage, 59% of the time was in H-back. 19% of the time he was split out. Only 20% of the time was he in line. And Gunnar Helm was the guy that was in line the most out of those two, playing 40% in line. It's just not what they are these days. And Amari Niblack kind of fits that same thing Jatavian brings to the table. And anybody familiar with the draft process, that's kind of where the NFL's gone as well, with Kyle Pitts, who's more of a slot type of a guy. Brock Bowers from Georgia this last year. Dalton Kincaid. Sam Laporta. These guys are coming in around 240, 235, more athletic and more apt to playing in the slot as H-backs, split out wide. It's just kind of the art of where the game is going. So I think that the creativity you just brought up with that touchdown, it shows you, first off, what these tight ends can do now, but also it's going to force the hand of a guy, and maybe it doesn't force a hand really, but it allows Sarkeesian and other offensive coordinators across the sport to also be creative in using not only the receivers that they have, which is a ton now at Texas, but also utilizing those tight ends to where people are forgetting, like, oh man, we got to cover these 3 receivers that are out here. And all of a sudden there's Niblack wide open. They forget about him. And that's going to happen. Those opportunities will come.
Yeah, no doubt. And by the way, if you're looking for a tight end comparison number, Sanders had 45 catches last year. So there's 45 catches from a tight end. Do they go to a tight end in 2024? Nyblack hope so. Or is it some Nyblack and Helm and a combination? Maybe hope so. But that's 45 catches that is going to be drafted. And it is just going to be so much fun. If you are a Texas fan, this is the problem you want to have. You're losing all that productivity, but it's headed into the NFL, and they're, they just went crazy at the combine and everything, and you feel like you've replaced it with all kinds of good talent. So we will continue. 45 catches for Sanders last year, and just to compare, Bond had 48 to go to the receivers, and again, Bolden had 54 in terms of the catches last year. And maybe the most fascinating number, Cody, is that Jonte Cook had how many catches last year, kids? 8. It's going to go from 8 to what in 2024? We might be about to see one of the craziest catch jumps in the history of college football. To me, that dude could catch as many as he wants.
I mean, 8 to 88. Screw it. You know what I'm saying? But I think as much as we talk about the receivers, isn't it also just interesting just to think about that exact number you brought up? And I know we're like, well, how are we going to splice these all out? But if you go back to those Bama days, whatever, 4 guys over 40, 108 to 40 was the numbers. The tight ends didn't do anything. Last year, Whittington was 3rd with 46 at the wide receiver position. Jatavian had 50. Jatavian was so 4 guys had 40 plus targets, right? It was 103, 70, 46, and 50. This year, you're going to have 4 guys. We're perceiving it to be 4 receivers that would probably be north of that 40 target range. Then that would, if his history tells us anything, with Sark, that tight end would be left with something like 18 targets, 24 targets, or that 5th receiver, 20, maybe 20 targets. I don't know. That's, I think, the biggest question. And I think maybe the thing that makes me the most interested in just this group of talent is it feels like who's going to get shafted, who's going to lose out on opportunities.
Right.
It truly is. We can sit here and talk about this for 6 months straight. Jonte Cook, Isaiah Bond, DeAndre Moore, Matthew Golden, Silas Bolden, Amari Nyblack. I'm not even going to bring up Ryan Wingo. That's 6 dudes. Which one of those dudes has sub 15 targets? Which one? Tell me right now. You can't. And
you didn't even factor in targets to running backs.
Yeah. Which one of those dudes is going to have, 8 targets? 10 targets, and why? Just because games aren't just going to go that direction, and maybe it is Silas. We talk about Silas Bolden. He's not in here yet. That might just be part of the thing where he might lose out on some opportunities just because he's missing the spring. But I don't think it would hurt Silas Bolden to the largest extent where maybe he comes in here and he only has 17 targets, catches 14 balls, he has 312 yards. 4 touchdowns, a random thing like that. That's not, I don't think, out of the range of possibilities, but it's also just crazy to think about the amount of talent that's in here. And it's not just it's freshman talent or sophomore talent and there's expectation. We've already seen it. We've already seen Bolden do it. We've already seen Golden do it. We've already seen Bond do it. The expectation is there for Moore and Cook and all these things. It's going to be a wild thing to watch as the season unfolds.
It definitely is. By the way, to the Specs chat text guy, this is unnecessary. I'm showing you a picture of Arch Manning. We're trying to have a good time, and you're talking about QB1 next week. Come on. There's no need for that. We'll get to more pictures. There might be another picture with him in it. We'll just have to see. Before we do that, let me take a breath and tell you about Deep Eddy Vodka in that tasting room out there in beautiful Dripping Springs. I miss it when I'm not there. It's so much fun to go out and just hang with friends and family, drink some of those great cocktails, have some of that incredible barbecue. They've got Crimson Creek Smokehouse barbecue right there on site. It's so good. I would send you for the barbecue alone, but you also get the great Deep Eddy stuff. You want to go buy some Deep Eddy vodka? They can certainly do that. My wife wears a Deep Eddy vodka shirt around the house. There's all kinds of cool stuff. But you just go out, hang out, have a good time, get some of this great spring weather. Thursdays through Sundays is when they crank it open. Thursday and Friday, 11 to 7. Saturday, 11 to 5. Sunday, 12 to 5. The Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. Remember, tell them to make you a dreamsicle and tell them I sent you out there for it, even if you don't see it on the menu. It is so, so good. You will absolutely freak out. Deep Eddy Vodka Tasting Room. All right. Speaking of tasting, we've been giving you a little taste of this Texas football team through pictures. let's go back to the offensive stuff. I started with defense because that's my DNA. I'm a defensive-minded football fan, so I wanted to start there. But Cody, let's pick up with this dude, Jonte Cook, because I am in the fan club. I can't wait to see what he does. There's Jonte showing off everything. But one thing I love about him, Cody, is I don't think I'm not sure if fans are quite – I'm not saying they're not ready. They're going to be so impressed with the combo of everything with him. In one practice, I'm already hearing about his attitude stands out, his leadership, his moxie. He's already one of those guys. And right here, he's showing off those great hands.
I asked Alex this, and this is something, I've gone to, I don't even know how many events with him getting ready for the NFL draft, and comps is always a conversation through the NFL draft. I go, this guy looks like this guy. These are traits that remind me. And so yesterday I'm just sitting there waiting for Alex to bring something up on one of the shows. He didn't. So I texted him. I said, who is the comp for Cook? Who does he remind you of when you're watching it? Because there's always someone that comes to your mind. And he said, good question. I'll have to think about it. No one immediately comes to mind. But Cook looks sick as fuck. And I was just like, dude, that's enough. Like, I was hoping for maybe some, reminds me a little bit of Odell or a little bit of this, a little bit of that. And then he's just sick, dude. And that's just all I need to hear. And you see the body, the growth in his body and how his frame looks. And it's hard to not get over your skis and just be like, man, this guy's about to just blow the college football apart and be an All-American. But if all things go right, that shouldn't be out of the question either.
Yeah, in that 194 range, I believe, is where it is.
Perfect.
It just feels like he's ready to roll. That is Jonte Cook. That is Isaiah Bond, also a guy that makes a helmet look pretty cool, Cody. That if I put that helmet on with the pad over the top, I'd look like an idiot. Isaiah Bond makes it look pretty good.
Yes, I guess that's a good way to put that. Yeah, Isaiah Bond is, again, another excellent wide receiver, and this is going to be a sick duo. I think that's all I really got is I just really think this is going to be a sick duo. Not even talking about the rest of the guys.
And also, for those of you wondering, when Alex and Anwar, Jason, they got their eyeballs on the guys yesterday, the question, when it came out that Bond was on the outside instead of the inside, that was thought about the slot because of, snaps at Bama, they all said he looked comfortable outside. So just in case you're thinking, well, maybe they just stuck Bond out there because, they didn't have another outside guy or whatever. Not the case. They said he looked good out there. So we'll kind of keep an eye on how that all looks. That is Bond. This is Devondre Moore. I thought I'd throw a picture in here. You talked about him earlier, Cody. It does say something. I know it's the first day, but it says something that he was in that first mix. This is the guy in the slot that you were talking about earlier. Talk a little bit more about him, because I'm guessing they don't just hand out that opportunity, just because.
No, and he was 93% slots last year and literally only was in on 15 snaps. 14 of them were in the slot. I think it's just something we learned, even just interviewing Jordan Winton a couple times, who will be competing today at the Pro Day, hopefully. But DeAndre Moore is kind of a guy that just kind of was in his hip pocket. And that's a big thing, especially in the receiver room. And he got to sit for a year as a 4-star and learn everything that Whittington's done. And everybody around Texas knows Whittington and knows why he's so important to the team. And if that can rub off onto a DeAndre Moore, who's going to be here for the next 2 years, maybe 3, that's going to be massive for the locker room, massive for the team, and massive for the receiver room, where you're going to lose Bond, you're going to lose Golden, you're going to lose Bolden after this season already, right? It's just naturally how it's going to work. And if you can find through that process, you knew you had Jonte Cook, your expectations for Ryan Wingo to come into his sophomore year in 2025 are large. But if you can all of a sudden have a DeAndre Moore that you just know is going to dominate the slot and be a very good locker room leader, it's going to be monumental in the growth of this Texas team, who is hoping to take that big step next to be national champions. And if you can have a receiver like this, where maybe you don't need to bring in 3 dudes next year, maybe you only need to bring in 1 guy out of the transfer portal, because you have the Wingos, the Cooks, and more. That is a big piece, I think.
Yeah, that's interesting. Also, a reminder here, 0 is that jersey number. So 0 on defense, of course, is Anthony Hill. 0 on offense is DeAndre more. And now we get to some interesting
Yes.
first world problems. Here comes some first world problems for you, Texas fans. I got the next 3 pictures for you are, what are you going to do with all of this? And Cody, we're going to start with Gibson. You told me you shot out a picture of him yesterday. I'm not sure if it was this one, but it got a little attention.
No, it was the other one where it's like right up on his helmet and he's just jacked. He just looks massive, and it just caught traction really quickly. And like many things do when they go viral, they just go quick. This running back, man, I don't know. Everything we heard from the guys coming out of practice yesterday was like, dude, these guys aren't, again, like we talked about with Phil Simay a minute ago, these guys aren't freshmen. Like, what is this? This isn't
right.
Christian Clark is receiving the ball in the backfield at a very mature level. I would say borderline professional level, according to Alex. And then Gibson just looks massive. And I was, I go and dabble in a couple other sites and listen along different things and try to get different thoughts. And people are saying the same thing about the body type and the build about Christian Clark as we were hearing, and our guys were commenting about Jarrett Gibson. So both of these guys coming along quickly and being, I think the question is going to rise, and I think you got some more pictures of these running backs, so I don't want to talk over it all, but I think the question is going to come. This transfer portal opens up in a month?
Yeah.
Got a lot of running backs in this backfield. Got a lot of running backs in this backfield.
Let's show you both of those names. So that's Gibson right there. I got to do a quick little change to another set of pictures, but that's Clark. So here's another one. Doesn't exactly look out of shape, does he, Cody?
No, that is again, so this is one where the legs, it's kind of a weird angle, but the legs are, those are good looking legs, and he don't got the upper body like Gibson did. So he's not going to, get he's not going to go viral with this picture just because he's not jacked out of his mind in the upper body. But I mean, that lower body is put together well. And like Alex said, he's one of the, if not the best receiving back on the team, which in itself, we know is a big, big thing for these coaches in earning opportunities.
Yeah. And Cody, I'll put one more picture up here in kind of this sequence. So you've seen Gibson now, Texas fans. That is Clark. And I'm going to throw this other one in too. Not a freshman, but I also wonder, Cody, what do you do with this? This is Trey Weisner. And everybody's going to think I grew up in DeSoto as much as I talk about Jonte Cook and him, but I got to see him play 7-on-7 live on the field. And my eyes bugged out of my head watching those two guys. And I kept telling Texas fans that when I would talk to them, you're going to love both of them. This dude is so versatile to me, Cody. I don't know anything he can't do. I love the way he catches the ball out of the backfield. He's just a crazy hybrid, versatile weapon to me. And I'm not sure what Sark's going to do with him, but I got a feeling like it's something.
Do you think that – so the worry I have is that we know – like, again, the only conversation that was had about running backs leading up to spring practice was literally just Baxter or Blue. Who's going to get the carries? Everyone on OB is like, oh, Blue needs to get more carries than Baxter, blah, 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 blah. And now all of a sudden, I guess both these freshmen are just ready to play. And Savion's here. He's a little overweight. And Trey Weisner, now there's 6 running backs. And Weisner, who maybe was looked at as the Kylan Robinson of the group, if you're looking at last year's crew where he can be just plugged in spots and he's got a great burst and great acceleration. Now he might be looking on the outside looking in. And if you're if you're the coaching staff, if you're Weisner, if you're Red, is there a conversation there where we're just like, damn, man, we really want you to have opportunities. We really want you to be a part of this team, but we're looking at sophomore, junior, Jaden Blue, freshman. Like, that's a lot of young dudes that are just in front of you. And it's like, are you up for that? Are you up for that competition? Are you up for that? Not saying he's not up for the competition, but are you up for that battle to where even if you grind through here, it's an uphill battle. You're going to continue to dig. And while you're digging, you're going to get dirt thrown on you. And that's a metaphor, right? Like, it's going to be very tough for Weisner to really, create a role where there's going to be opportunity to even get to the next level. And I'm assuming like all these guys want to get to the next level. It's like, if you're Weisner, why not, again, love him, but why not potentially, if the opportunity is there, jump in the portal and find a spot where there's a real role for you. And I'm not saying that there isn't a real role for him here, but it's an embarrassment of riches really at the running back position now. If the things at the running back position are going to continue to go like they are.
Also, it's interesting as you look at this picture, Cody, and as the fans look at it, 6'1", 195 is how he's listed. He's kind of that. He's a tweener to me. We don't usually talk about tweener with running back receiver, but I'll never forget. First time I saw him playing 7-on-7, I thought, okay, is he a running back or is he a receiver? And it's cool that the answer can be yes, but ultimately at the college level and then moving forward, doesn't the answer need to be definitively one or the other? They're trying to figure all that out. I'm really interested in Weisner. And again, there's your reminder. He's wearing 26. The return game for Weisner, maybe. Is he a part of that? Kind of keep your eyes peeled for him. Let's move on and see. By the way, that's Wingo. We hadn't mentioned Ryan Wingo. You kind of mentioned him earlier, Cody, at the end of a conversation. I just wanted to throw the picture in because he looks like he's in serious shape. This is the picture Missouri fans see in their nightmares over the next couple days. They wanted him to be wearing black and gold. He's not. He's wearing burnt orange. And the reports have already been out there that Ryan Wingo's not coming in here to not get reps.
Last year, that number 5 was held by Sadir Mitchell. I think this year it's held by Adonis Wingo. Like this is an Adonis. He like that is, again, we're talking about this with all these freshmen. That's not a freshman. Look at how he's built. Look at what that's not how freshmen come in. Maybe that's the new thing. Freshmen are just going to come in looking like they should be in the NFL, but you could compare that picture to a lot of pictures you see in fall camp in the NFL, and the body type is mirroring a lot of these cats. So like I said before, in many years, if you rewinded 3 years, go back to 2022, this kid right here, next to Xavier Worthy, he has 80 targets.
Yeah. Yeah. It's how does he fit into this mix this year as a freshman? Well, I'll put it to you this way, Cody. I did this for catch as a buy or sell at one point. Let's just take the boundary of Jonte Cook catches. He had 8. Do you think Wingo has more than 8 this year?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Like 8 times yes.
Yeah.
When you just look at and part of it might be just the build of the group where they're all around that 6 foot tall mark, and he's just going to come in here and be a couple inches taller. And if we learned anything with Adonai really in the red zone last year, it's that is a difference making piece where if Wingo can show those things in practice early, that's an easy package to introduce to him, is just a red zone package. And that's how you earn those opportunities early. So you could 100% just see him focused on that. It's going to be hard to get on the field period, but if they do introduce him into a smaller package / role in the red zone, that's a good way to bump those catches, bump those targets up early.
Yeah. There's one of your beasts in waiting, Texas fans. Let's go a couple more here real quick. Here's a picture of Trey Owens and a couple guys. I just thought maybe people would want to see a picture of Trey Owens. I can't see the other 2 jersey numbers, Cody. I'm not sure who these other 2 guys are, trying to be quarterback.
I think they're walk-ons. I think
these are walk-on guys. Right, exactly. By the way, in case you're wondering, looks like some sort of like Longhorn skull tattoo on the left leg of Quinn Ewers there for you Ink fans. I don't see any tats so far on Arch Manning, at least that we can see in this picture. But both of them ready to fire in practice. So there are your pictures, just to get you some imagery of Texas practice as it gets started. Thanks to Jason Sukamel for getting all those pictures taken, but also getting them all posted at orangebloods.com. And we will remind you again about Orange Bloods for all the practice reports, all the stuff you want. We'll throw a QR code up for you. You've got tomorrow is Thursday, which means it's the first war room night after practice gets started. Plus, tomorrow there's another practice window, another early, like 9 o'clock or so practice window where the guys are going to be able to get their eyes on them again, going to be able to get hopefully some more pictures, maybe another gallery, maybe a couple videos. Just keep it right here on Orange Bloods Live and keep following things at orangebloods.com. We're going to get you the very latest. So there's your QR code, and you can get over there and get everything scanned. It's going to be a lot of fun dealing with that. We got a little buy or sell for Cody coming up here in just a second. Before that, I just want to remind you once again about sinus and snoring specialists. Get to sleeping a little better than you have. You got to get your rest. You got to be ready for football season or the tournament. You know how much basketball is about to come on? You got to be sleeping right. If you're not sleeping like you should, if the allergies are driving you crazy, sinus infections, sinus headaches, all that stuff people deal with, you can be done with it. Like I'm done with it because of sinus and snoring specialists. It's the very latest in ear, nose, and throat. And I've sent a lot of people over to sinus and snoring specialists through the years. They love the experience. They love all the different options that are there. And like I always say, do not tape your mouth shut. Don't even think about taping your mouth shut. Get to sinus and snoring specialists and find out how to breathe better through your nose. Those are two very different things. Go to sinus and snoring specialists. Feel clear, rested, and healthy. All right, Cody, you about ready for a little buy or sell before we get out of here?
Yes, and I did want to mention one thing is that those that are following along the Pro Day right now, Alex did just drop his Pro Day thread over on Orange Bloods that Chad just bumped over there. If you want to go over to Orange Bloods and read that. The over-under this morning that Anwar gave Alex was 1.5 for attendees that did not attend the Combine, and the official number is 3. It's Ryan Sanborn, Jet Bush, and Tannehill Love. Is there's 3 official Longhorns that have that did not compete at the NFL Combine. So you can go over there and check that out as well. I don't think there's any numbers up here. I was trying to see if there was maybe a Jatavian. Oh, Jatavian got 8 bench reps. That's the number we got so far. So no 40-yard dashes yet. But as soon as that number comes out, Alex will have that up over to Orange Bloods. So go over to orangebloods.com and follow along to that Pro Day thread.
There you go. We'll get that taken care of. And check it all out there. We'll see if Jatavian Sanders can get into he predicted low 4.6s, but didn't quite get there at the Combine. Let's see if he can do it on the home track today. It is pro timing day. We're guessing Xavier Worthy's going to be okay with his 4.21. That's the theory. No truth to the rumor that he really wants a 4.20. He's good with the 4.21. He'll deal with that. All right. Before we roll out of here, let's recap with a little buy or sell, Cody, and we'll start with this one. Buy or sell number 1, top 4 in catches for Texas this season. Today, you'll go with Cook, Bond, Bolden, and Moore.
I'll buy it. Buy it. I don't think Wingo gets there. We just talked about him. I think he's going to get his opportunities. I don't think he gets there. The Bolden Golden thing, I think, is close. I think some people might think about it more as more Golden being close, but I think it's Bolden Golden that is close just because I think Bolden, the way he plays, they're not going to need to focus on him. Like I said, Oregon State earlier had to. And he's very dynamic, you'd be able to be used as a stretch guy. Whereas you could see Golden being a guy that could get more targets any given week than Bolden can. So I think it's going to be close, but I'll buy this one.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. How many guys get quantity and quality, and how many guys have to but have to focus on the quality and not so much the quantity, like you were talking about earlier. Do the most with what you get. We'll see how it all plays out. Buy or sell number 2, Texas basketball wins tomorrow, and they face Rick Barnes in the second round.
Buy. I was kind of hoping it's against Colorado State, right? I think I didn't watch that game. Okay, so I was hoping because I'm from Virginia, I was hoping it was going to be Virginia and Texas, but I'm going to go ahead and ride Texas. I think I got Texas going to the Sweet 16 before they get knocked out in my bracket that I filled out. I've only filled out 1 this year. Years ago, I used to fill out like 30, 40 of these things, but I only filled out 1 in the Orange Bloods competition. So going with the win for Texas.
Get in that Orange Bloods bracket. Great prize package that we're putting together there. And also, Wes Miller is going to have a preview coming out this evening of the game. So be checking orangebloods.com this evening. Wes is going to get his preview out and scouting report out on Colorado State. By the way, Cody, since you mentioned you're from Virginia, now I'm fascinated. What must it be like to be a Virginia basketball fan? Like, you've got that championship to talk about, but you've also got some of the most embarrassing moments I've ever seen in a basketball game to have to eat. Like, I don't even know what are they like?
So I'm not one. I will say that I'm from Minnesota, but I live in Virginia for 4 years now. But one of my better friends here in Virginia is a Virginia Cavalier basketball fan. Grew up in Charlottesville, and I have had to sit through a couple of Virginia games with him where he sits there in pain because this was last year. They've been playing great defense for a few years, but the agony I get to watch on his face as they drop games they shouldn't or get beat 51-49, things like this. I couldn't imagine it. That's why I don't watch a ton of basketball. I'll be honest. I haven't watched a singular basketball game this whole year in college. I've watched one NBA game, nothing.
Right.
I can't really, I can't do it anymore. But Virginia, it's watching him though. It's enough for me.
At 14 at the half, like 14, it was like a bad junior high girls game at one point, and that kind of insults junior high girls basketball in a way. So I'm sorry, ladies, but I'm just glad in a way it's not Virginia against Texas, because if the worst version of those two teams showed up, Cody, the final could be 28-27. You realize that, right? Like it could be awful.
What I'm saying. Those Virginia, the thing is they tend to play good defense. So it's like they literally like 51-49 is like not out of the question. That's horrid. That's a painful game to watch.
Brutal. Last 9 minutes, I think it was, of the game, they took 14 threes and missed every one of them. Unbelievable. All right, let's go to something happier. Buy or sell number 3. Xavier Worthy caught 75 balls last season. You like Cook to get at least 70.
He caught 75 on 103 targets.
Mm-hmm.
Worthy at 113 the year before. I'm going to go over. I'm going to buy. I'm gonna buy Cook over 70, and I'm gonna go with like 88.
God, can you imagine if you're right? I think I'd buy it as well. If he goes from 8 catches to that kind of productivity, the country is going to lose its mind on that guy. It's going to be incredible.
Be an All-American. He might be an All-American at 88.
He might be. That could be wild. All right, let's go to the NFL real quick. Buy or sell number 4. Jahmyr Gibbs turns 22 years old today. I know you follow football very closely at all levels. You were shocked at how good he was in year 1 with the Lions.
No, I wasn't shocked because he showed it to us in college at Georgia Tech and then going to Bama. And really what I was shocked with was the lack of usage the first month of the season. Like the opportunity should have been there earlier. They should have been able to utilize him in the receiving game in the slot more than they did earlier. And then it's kind of a cool thing to be able to go through the whole process and actually get to interview the coaches and stuff. And we're at the combine a couple of weeks ago. We literally asked Dan Campbell, what's up with Jahmyr Gibbs? The utilization was kind of weird. And he's like, he was playing too fast. We needed him to slow down. And I was like, wait, what? Like this guy's job is to catch the football and run fast. He's like, he's just playing too fast. So I think he's just going to continue to dominate. And, you hate to put the moniker of like Alvin Kamara, Christian McCaffrey on him, but this is the type of guy that he's the new age of those. He's the new version, the new age coming. Like we talked about earlier with the tight ends, changing body types. It's Gibbs being able to receive at the level he can and also be efficient in the running game. If he can stay healthy, it's going to be dangerous for the next 6-7 years.
It's crazy. How about this stat? In college and now 1 year of the NFL, his worst yards per carry is 5.2. He went 5.2 both years at Georgia Tech. He went up to 6 point something at Bama. Then he slid back to 5.2 in his first year with the Lions. That's silly.
I didn't know that. That's a good number. So 5.2 in 3 out of those 4 years, exactly 5.2.
5.2. You can live with 5.2. Most coaches will tell you, if I can get 5.2 every time I give him the ball,
win.
Let's give him the ball.
Yes.
Happy birthday to Jahmyr Gibbs. Fantasy owners, I know you're paying attention to that one as we get closer to the summertime. And finally, let's go entertainment. Buy or sell number 5. Today would have been Carl Reiner's birthday. Don't worry, Cody. I'm not going to feel old and ask if you know who Carl Reiner is, but I'm going this way because it's one of my favorite movies he directed. You have seen Steve Martin in The Jerk. Buy or sell?
Sell.
Oh, so close. He has not seen I Was Born a Poor Black Child. All right. That's one to check out. If you just want a completely understated, silly ass movie, go check out The Jerk. It's one of Steve Martin's best to many people. And Carl Reiner would have been 102 today. He lived to be 98. He lived to be 98, and he's one of the funniest men ever. He's one of the most productive, funny men that ever lived, and he was like a badass. In fact, he died at 98 at like 10 or 11 o'clock at night, but he'd had dinner with Mel Brooks that day. They used to hang out every day. He hung out with Mel Brooks. They had a good meal. And then he kind of like falls down and then just died that night at 98. But he just went all the way till the end. No problem.
Yikes. I was hoping you were going to say like he went and sat down in his chair, turned on the news and fell asleep and didn't wake up. But not fall down.
There was a little bit of a fall, but they'd say it wasn't even that bad. He probably made a joke about the fall as he went down, knowing Carl Reiner. He probably did. Rest in peace to the great Carl Reiner. And you got so much stuff to go check out if you want. Also, it's Mr. Rogers' birthday today, Cody. So I want to go into your psyche. I'm sure Mr. Rogers did not raise you like he helped raise me. I was a Mr. Rogers Sesame Street kid. What's a show that raised you as a little kid? What were you always watching when you were, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years old?
I'm going to be honest with you. Sports Center. I'm going to be honest with you. Straight up Sports Center.
Stuart Scott raised you?
Stuart Scott and Stan Verrett. They raised me on Sports Center. And it's so random. I never watched cartoons. This is going to sound so stupid. I literally used to wake up in the morning and watch what the hell would they used to call it? Morning on the 8s on the Weather Channel and then Sports Center. The most bizarre combo. I'd always wake up at like 6 o'clock in the morning before school, watch Weather on the 8s, and then turn on Sports Center. And that was it.
Dude, I thought I was weird because on Saturday mornings, I was babysat by ACC basketball. I'd wake up and listen to Dick Vitale calling basketball. You're waking up and you're crushing Weather on the 8th and Sports Center? Like you're
I forgot about that until you brought it up, too. I forgot that. I totally
like you're a CPA? What are you doing? That's awesome. So when you were a kid, you couldn't tell me anything about cartoons, but you could tell me like the high in Tacoma that day.
Yeah, I couldn't. I honestly, if you put a gun to me right now, what did you watch when you were a kid for cartoons? Maybe SpongeBob, I guess. That kind of came up when that was getting hot, but like I didn't watch it like that. Like God, I know what my little brother and sister watched more than I know what I watched. Like my little brother, I think he was coming up when like Peppa Pig started to get hot, and like, Bob the Builder and like was like my sister and stuff like that. Like I couldn't tell you what was on for cartoons when I was growing up.
You're turning on the Weather for. Check out Weather on the 8s. It's awesome. All right, so it's also this would have been Jerry Reed's birthday from a few things, but Smokey and the Bandit fame. Have you ever seen Smokey and the Bandit?
Yes. Okay. Yes, I've watched Smokey and the Bandit. I'm not that old. Yes, it's a thumbs up.
Yeah. Okay, thumbs up. Smokey and the Bandit.
100%.
There you go. So happy birthday to the memory of the snowman today. He died back in 2008. Jerry Reed, go check out him and the dog and Bandit and all that good stuff. Also, music fans, Jimmy Vaughn has a birthday today. So glad Jimmy is still around, man. Obviously, the older brother of Stevie Ray Vaughan, who should be around. Jimmy Vaughn, 73 today, and one of the best guitar players that people do not talk about. Happy birthday to him. Also, happy birthday to Sting, not the musician, but the wrestler. Sting, who just retired, who just finished. He's 65 today. Hopefully Sting has found that peace where he does not have to go back in the ring. It's a tough thing to get away from for those guys, but happy birthday to Sting. There's plenty of people that'll tell you he's living in my neck of the woods. He's up in like Waxahachie area now. So hopefully Sting is doing well at 65 today. And Cody Carpentier was certainly doing well today, jumping in on the show. I do appreciate you, Cody. I'm just going to scan this chat here and see if there's anything else we need to hit real quick. There we go. You know what? Let's just throw this up. Jack says Three Stooges. Okay, Jack, that can do it. Three Stooges raised me a little bit. I'd peek in on the Three Stooges a little bit. I did a little bit of that. Yeah. Cody, I do appreciate the time, brother. It's an exciting time right now. Did we get anything from Alex in terms of a shuttle time or a 40 time, or do we just send people to Orange Bloods?
I'm gonna pull it back up here just quickly. We got broad jumps right now. Nothing updated on running. Jalen Ford benched again. He got 18 reps.
Okay.
We got a Ryan Watts broad jump, 11'1".
Ooh, I love a good broad jump. 11'1".
Worthy jumped as well. Holy cow! 10'10" for Worthy. That's massive. Well, I mean, it's kind of expected with the athleticism, with the running and stuff, but that's a mega jump. 10-10 for Worthy and 11-1 for Watts. So he's updating by the minute as it's happening. So go over to orangebloods.com and check that out. I did have one question for you though, Chad.
Yeah.
'Cause I did see you quoted the Orange Bloods tweet about my power rankings, and
Yes.
I only showed my top 5.
Yes.
And the 2 teams I got the most slack for in on Orange Bloods in the comments was my Oklahoma ranking and my A&M ranking, which makes sense. But I try to
Right.
have no bias across the conversation. I didn't put Texas 1. I got some tweets. I mean, like, I'm not going to read this. Texas is 1. I'm like, they're actually not. Georgia's
Yeah.
number 1. You got to be
Right.
the man
You
to
put
beat the
Georgia.
man.
You did. You were fair.
And so I put Oklahoma 6 and A&M. Did you see the record I put on the projection for Texas A&M this year?
I'll admit I did not. I saw your top 5 and I reacted, and I like that you slid Ole Miss in ahead of Bama. That was my favorite little move that you did. I didn't see what you have for the Aggies, so let me hear it. Let me hear it.
I put them at 9-3, and I have them as the 8th ranked team in the conference.
Man, I hope you're right about that record. I hope you are right. By the time we get there, as a fan, you can always kind of talk yourself into stuff. I hope they can quietly find their way to that number. But that first game, I think it's the first game, or is Notre Dame maybe second? I think they have to go right at Notre Dame first game.
Yeah.
That's
at home, though.
It is. It's such a big game for the Aggies. It is so big because they're going to get over or underrated immediately like that. If they beat Notre Dame, they're going to get way overcooked. If they lose to Notre Dame, people will bury them. The Aggie jokes are going to flow like water. And they could lose that game on a last-second field goal. It won't matter. If they lose it, they're going to get hammered. It is a huge game for them. If they can grab that one, I think 9 is not that crazy.
I don't think it is either. And people that commented, I don't think really looked at the schedule or anything, but all of the difficult games are at home. And of course, I've never been to Kyle Field, but all I've ever heard is that it's a tough place to play. And you got Notre Dame going to Kyle Field, Missouri, LSU, Texas, all going there. You got a couple of road games that are tough. You got to go to Auburn, whatever. But
and maybe the biggest key, Cody, where do they play Alabama? You got the schedule in front of you. Where do they play Bama?
Don't see them.
Exactly. Where do they play Georgia?
Don't see them. So that's what I'm saying. Like, people are like, well, they're not going to win 9 games. It's like, and then also then the inverse, like I have Florida going 2-10. It's like, did you look at the Florida schedule? The Florida schedule is the toughest schedule potentially in the history of the damn sport. And it's like, also I look back at like Elko, when Elko was the DC there. I think they lost, goddamn, what was the number? 14 games in 4 years he was there. And they've lost 13 the last 2 when he wasn't there. And I know it's not all correlated to defense and Elko, but he's back. Like, I'm not saying they're going to be the greatest things in sliced bread, but there should be a little expectation there. There's some expectation with Weigman, and quarterback's very important. So and you bring up that Notre Dame, if they were hypothetically to win that game, write it all off. And even if they lose it, that might be the best thing for them is losing that game by 3. And then you just got, McNeese State, Bowling Green, Florida. You walk through those ones, and all of a sudden you get cooking, you get warmed up.
Yeah.
Missouri has to come to you. All of a sudden you got one loss going, and you got LSU in late October, and you got one loss. You're 7-1. Like,
no, it's possible. They're an interesting story to watch. Obviously, we'll be paying close attention here on House Divided to how both those teams are rolling, because I'm the silly dreamer that thinks maybe Texas and Texas A&M could be good at the same time, but it doesn't seem to ever want to happen historically. And I'm going to dig through some of those numbers in some video shorts coming up for people as we get a little closer. This Saturday is 100 days till the SEC, Texas fans. I'm going to count it down for you. Cody, always appreciate it, brother. Thank you for jumping in. Everybody check out Cody's stuff. He's at Cody Carpentier on Twitter and at orangebloods.com, breaking stuff down, looking at different guys, recruits, guys as we head towards the draft. What are you working on right now, Cody, for Orange Bloods?
Right now, I'm working on a couple of recruiting write-ups, talking to a couple of prospects. So those are going to be out those come out every Friday. So I'll have that next one up coming on Friday. I'm trying to pick between which guy I want to post this week, but one of those will be up coming on Friday. And then just in general, just working on draft stuff over at Roster Watch, getting ready for my big board and my mock draft coming out soon.
Beautiful. More than anything else, we want to thank all of you for supporting Orange Bloods Live. I'm seeing over 1,000 people in the Specs chat right now. That is awesome. We love that. We also love the fact that you are liking, subscribing, and getting your notifications to Orange Bloods Live. All that's free. Remember, just like Hustle, it's free. It doesn't cost you a thing. So we thank you for all that support. In fact, The subscriber number went to 18.6 thousand. Don't think we don't notice that. We thank you for every bit. And for those of you that are about to go unsubscribe to try to drop it back under, how dare you? How dare all of you? And we do wish Jeff Ketchum all the best dealing with some of the crazy stuff he's dealing with this week. He will be back hopefully Friday on the show. We'll see, but he's definitely on the Outsiders tonight. 8:30. We'll let the Outsiders fire questions at him about early practice, camp battles, and all that kind of stuff. Bow Edge and Chance Mock, and what do they want to know about the team? All that kind of good stuff. That's 8:30 tonight. Also at 4 o'clock this afternoon, it's the recruiting show with me and Jason Sukamel. Jason will tell you what recruits are going to be coming in to check out practice. He's got some of that laid out for you, some of those big names, including that April 6th day, which just seems to grow and grow and grow in terms of some of the big names coming in. We'll hit you with that at 4 o'clock. And a quick note about tomorrow. Here's why you want to always have your notifications set up. Tomorrow, there's no morning show because Anwar and Alex are headed out to watch the practice availability at Texas. There's no afternoon modcast at 4 because those guys have some other engagement they've got to deal with in terms of Texas football. So without catch on tomorrow, what we're going to do is we're going to pile in a big middle of the day modcast. We're going to go 12 o'clock modcast tomorrow, a special edition. Myself, Anwar, Jason, Alex, they'll have been at practice, the availability. They'll have seen whatever they've seen, and they're going to bring it to you tomorrow at noon. So make sure you're back here at noon. We appreciate all of you doing that. Thanks to Specs for helping us with the chat. Until 12 o'clock tomorrow for that special modcast, we are House Divided.